Hi, I'm Deborah Dahab, expat coach and intercultural psychologist. Today, we're going to talk about something that I really get a lot of questions about is how to manage our expectations when moving to another culture, to another country. I hope you like this video, and if you do, please subscribe. There's a button in one of the sides here, and let's get to it. So, managing our expectations. First of all, is it possible to not to have expectations? So I've read a lot in for Facebook forums, etc., that I just learned not to have expectations. Well, that in itself is an expectation, I think, right? You're expecting not to expect anything. So there you go. We're going around in circles. I think that it is almost impossible to not have expectations because most of our behaviors and thoughts are from our subconscious, and we are not aware that we're having them. So these expectations might not even be in a conscious level, but they're there. And the first thing is, I think, is to accept they're there. And you might not even realize you had them until something is different from what you expected. So I think let's just accept the fact that it's almost impossible to not have expectations. And one thing that I think, and I talk about this a lot in my workshops, is that it's important to understand your motive. And I don't use the question why, know your why, on purpose. And the question I ask, and I'm asking you right now, is what is your what for? What did you move for? And you will know the answer to that question. And it's different for different people. Because when we ask why, sometimes like, oh, I wanted better quality of life. I wanted a better cost of living because I wanted to be closer or far away from blah, blah, blah. You can have your fill in the blanks there. When you ask the question, what for? What did you move for? You're making the person ask the real question, what was my objective when I made this decision? And I think that knowing the answer and having the clarity of knowing the answer to that question, what did you move for, is the cornerstone of managing your expectations. I hope this makes sense to you. The second question I would ask regarding managing expectations is, are you in your what for, okay? Are you running away from something or avoiding something? If your answer is yes, then it's going to be harder to manage expectations because whatever we're going away from is probably what we will encounter in the future. And if you're running away from problems or people, I'm sorry to say that is very likely that there similar problems and similar people are going to resurface, are going to show up in your future because there's supposed to be lessons learned. And your what for is going to work for you if it's phrased in a very positive and goal setting way. Hope that makes sense. So, one way to manage expectations to deal with that when moving to another culture is talk to people. And it's easier and easier to do that with social media. And when talk to people, ask about, the practical issues, the non-practical issues, the more emotional issues. It's really good to have people's input. And with that, I bring a word of caution. So other people's opinions are exactly that, other people's opinions. People have their own values, they have their own beliefs, they have their own mindset, they have their own issues, which are not yours. You will have your own values. You will have your own beliefs. You will have your own background. So it's really nice to talk to people, and it's nicer to talk to people. It's really more important to talk to people and keeping it all relative. So if this person had a bad experience, it doesn't mean you will have a bad experience. If another person had a positive experience, it doesn't mean you will have a positive experience. And also, be very mindful of getting biased by other people's opinions. So, by all means, talk to people and get input, and be very mindful of what you're listening. Be very mindful of how you intake that. We have a bias called confirmation bias. We humans have this. And we tend to give more importance and remember the information that confirms our beliefs. So if you talk to people and you already have a belief that, I don't know, interaction is difficult, whatever, or learning the language is difficult, and you will hear many different opinions, and you will probably pay more attention and look into more deeply or retain more information about the opinion that confirms your belief. Be mindful of that. By all means, talk to people, but be mindful that we are biased in that way. Okay? When managing expectations, it's important to look at the best case scenario. What is the best thing? How, in 3 years from now, or whatever your time frame is in moving, what is the best scenario? How do I want to be? And the worst case scenario. So what would be the worst thing for me to happen? So you can know what you're going to and what you want to avoid. Like for example, some clients, like the best case scenario for me would be to learn the local language, be completely fluent, be able to do my groceries, be able to interact with locals, and have don't depend on the English language to interact. And the worst case scenario for them would be, the worst case scenario for me would be, they tell me, not being able to interact in the local language at all, like only having friends that speak English. Well, now you know what you got to do to go to that best case scenario. Learn the language, interact with local people, have an action plan, be realistic about it, invest time and effort in it. So when you have the worst and the best case scenario without being delusional for the best case scenario and without being completely defeated and negative in the worst case scenario, you know that some aspects will be positive, some will be negative, but you will find a pattern of what's really important for you, and it probably, hopefully, will have to do with your what for, which was the first question you asked yourself in the process. So what are you feeling when you do this? Are you feeling fear? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling excitement? Are you feeling all of the above? Check in your emotions, because that's really important. And if you're moving with a partner, a spouse, family, check in with each other, understand other people's needs, understand how you can help them, and so they can understand your needs, what your what for is, and how they can help you. And it's important to communicate. It's really important to communicate and talk about what your what for is, because it can be different from your partner. Your partner's what for, imagine a scenario I've dealt with many times. An executive goes for an international assignment, and the partner, in many cases it's the wife, has to leave or decides to leave a career and a home country to go along with her husband. Now, his what for, maybe he is going, what is your what for, you ask him. He's like, I'm going to a promotion, to professional challenges, etc. Her what for might be completely different, probably is. So it's important to know that. It's important that in the partnership, in the couple, one knows the other what the other what for is. That makes sense. And finally, be accountable for your decision. If you're moving because it was a choice, which is the case of most people who are expats or moving, because of work or whatever. If it's a choice, be accountable for your choice. Own it, and know that there are going to be hurdles along the way, but it was your choice. That's really important. Um, I hope this video helped you. I know I had a lot more questions than answers this time, but it's important that you take stock on your feelings and your what for. What are you moving for? I hope this helps. I hope to see you next week, and please subscribe.